morning, everybody. My name is Julia Watson, and I'd like to take you on a journey into the past to envision the future. At the dawn of modernism, Louis Sullivan declared that form follows function. In the late 19th century, this was absolutely revolutionary. It was a call to strip buildings of monument and to design cities and buildings that mirrored the efficiency of machines. Cities were being reimagined as engines of innovation powered by coal and steel and pure industrial ambition. And as the skyscrapers soared and the streets were cemented, urban expansion raced forward on the assumption that the efficiency was the measure of progress. Today, we can see how that experiment has failed. It gave us forms that functioned, but it rarely gave us forms that thrived. Cities became rigid and mechanical, and mostly they became extractive. They exhausted ecosystems, they displaced culture, they buried their rivers and their wetlands. And what modernism gained in efficiency, it lost in life. Now on a planet in tremendous upheaval, this edict must change. Form follows flux. The forms we need today cannot be static. They must be responsive and they must adapt to water, to culture, and to the rhythms of life itself. Arthur C. Clarke's famous words, they remind us of the foundation of life. How inappropriate to call this planet Earth when it's quite clearly ocean. In many traditions, water is considered kin. It's considered an ancestor, a teacher. Water isn't this resource to be controlled. It's a foundational relationship to nurture. And cities, they once co-evolved with water. Take this city, the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. It was a metropolis of more than 200,000 people with a tribute of 5 million, and it was floating in harmony with its lakes. Its canals and its chinapas were a living infrastructure. They were adaptive, they were productive, and they were really deeply connected to the ecological cycles of the waters that surrounded it. Today, where that city once thrived before colonization, you can see Mexico City, which is sinking. Its rivers buried, its wetlands filled. When water dies, it actually takes worlds with it. And when we talk about technology today, what do we talk about? Silicon chips, satellites, and quite obviously, AI. But if we look back further, hundreds and even thousands of years, we can see another kind of dominant technology. These are technologies that were developed by ancestral cultures designed not to control nature, but to co-create with it. Technologies that have endured because they are inherently resilient and they're designed to respond to flux. So take the chinapas of the Aztecs. Originally designed actually by the Nahua. These are floating farms, some of which are still in existence today, and they're still filtering the water that comes out of the city of Mexico City. But not only do they produce food, they also purified the water, they enriched the soils, they supported incredible amounts of biodiversity. They formed a transportation network, they cooled the city, they sequestered carbon, and they stopped the city from experiencing floods and droughts. These are regenerative systems. They're not extractive ones. They're proof that when we design with water, cities can thrive for all life. This is Southeast Asia. They're the Beira floating islands. They're actually constructed from invasive water hyacinth. They rise with the monsoon and float around in the rivers, providing agriculture and food for all the communities. And then when the monsoon leaves and the dry season comes, they actually go back down to the ground and they feed and they gather nutrients and they enrich their soils. These are cyclical. They're adaptive systems. They sustain life. They filter the river waters. They revitalize all of the lands. And they provide essential habitat to all the native ecosystems. Recently, in the Pacific Northwest of the USA, the Swinomish people had been revitalizing their 4,000-year-old technology of clam gardening. These are rock terraces that are built at the low tide line, and they're designed to expand habitat for shellfish and to protect from oncoming weather events, but also to provide food security for generations. These aren't just ecological infrastructures, they are cultural ones. They show ceremony, they exhibit reciprocity, they are about stewardship, and they also provide really essential coastal climate resilience. The deeper truth is this. The greatest loss of the 21st century, it's not just going to be mass species extinction that is accelerating systems collapse. Humanity's oldest adaptations that support all of this global biodiversity, they are vanishing. Uniquely evolved over millennia, and they are found across the entire globe. They are tested against floods, droughts, rising temperatures, rising waters, accelerating storm events, everything that we're experiencing today, and their unspoken disappearance and the knowledge of how to design in reverence with resilience and in true partnership with the planet, that is actually going to be our greatest loss. The latest book in the Lo-TEK series, titled Water, it is a field guide to urban futures that are shaped by ancestral hydrology. It gathers lessons from the floating farms, from the terraced rivers, from the tidal gardens, not as artifacts of the past, but as blueprints for our future. Because water is not just a resource, it is a teacher, it's a designer whose intelligence we've just ignored for far too long. Traditional ecological knowledge, it actually shows us that urban design doesn't have to impose itself on nature. Unlike the modernist maxim, form follows function, which shapes cities around efficiency and universality, technological urbanism, it operates on a different principle. Form follows flux. Design emerges from the living rhythms of water, the living rhythms of land and culture, not from these predetermined algorithms. It is co-created with ancestral knowledge systems where reciprocity replaces extraction, and water's intelligence, such as its cycles, its flows, and its seasonal pulses, they become the foundation of urban life. And the guiding principles, they're actually pretty simple, but they're truly transformative. Water must be foundational to cities. Cities should be shaped by their watersheds, flowing with rivers and responding to their tides. Reciprocity in governance is essential, with urban futures co-created with indigenous local communities and about collective stewardship. Living systems, they have to come first before concrete and steel. We must learn to design with all life, weaving humans and plants and animals into our urban ecosystems. And we must understand how to design with regenerative cycles, where energy, food, water, waste, materials, they replenish rather than deplete. And these principles, they're not theoretical, they're actually already alive in practice. In Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Maori-led Wanganui River settlement granted legal personhood to the river itself, affirming what Maori have actually always known, that water has agency, water is alive, and that water has rights. This is urban planning in the context of kinship. And in Vancouver, Canada, the Senaqua development is led by the Squamish Nation, embedding indigenous sovereignty into the design of a climate-forward urban community. Here, urban growth is not a rupture with tradition, it's actually a continuation of it. So these are just glimpses of technological urbanism, cities that are not imposed on their landscapes, but they're composed of them. Cities that remember what water has always known. And these aren't just examples and lessons, they're a call to each and every one of us. They're a call to action. I answer that call to action with my institute, the Lo-TEK Institute, and the Office for Intercultural Urbanism, by turning that research and that ancestral wisdom into real projects that bridge culture, infrastructure, and innovation. And the Institute is not this traditional school, it's actually a living ecosystem that empowers educators to teach really dynamic, time-tested ancient science, engineering, and design. Blueprints for cities that can thrive in what we're experiencing now, a world that is full of flux. What we're doing is we're building capacity for a new type of climate literacy and leadership grounded in people and place and reciprocity. And then alongside that, the Lo-TEK Office for Intercultural Urbanism. It's co-led by indigenous and non-indigenous scientists and designers, and it's guided by a majority indigenous global advisory council. And we apply knowledge into practice, shaping landscapes and infrastructures and policy. The office merges indigenous science, TEK, and urban innovation, approaching cities as living collaborators. And technology, it emerges at this intersection of ancestral wisdom and ecological science, guiding regenerative urban design that honors place, culture, and the rhythms of life. So where you see form actually following flux, where cities are being designed not just as machines, but as living systems that flow with water and culture and climate, it's already happening around us. We can see cities that can breathe and that can move and that can respond rather than resist the world that is changing around them. So what if cities could remember their uniquely dynamic forces, the shifting rhythms of their waters and the seasonal pulses of the land, the stories and the knowledge that's embedded in the people who have lived in that place and shaped that place for millennia? What if the next century of design isn't about conquering or controlling nature? What if it's about partnering with it? It's about listening to it and learning from it. Imagine designing cities with ancestral memory. The memory of the water, the memory of the land, the wisdom of the generations who have lived before. All of the tools that we need, they actually exist. And the wisdom is alive, and indigenous knowledge, regenerative design, and ecological science, it's all here. We just have to see it. If we truly listen to water, to its memory, to its intelligence, and to its dire warnings, we can co-create cities that do more than just function. We can create cities that thrive with life and that remind us of our place in coexistence with this living planet. So I ask all of you, as designers and as planners and as policymakers, as planetary citizens, how will your city remember? Thank you.